Pleasant, good Wednesday morning. Peace, love, and light. Today, welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. I know you're accustomed or you're expecting to see Chase, but Chase is unable to be with us today. He may pop back in, so I am hosting for today. My name is Coach Ingrid, and I am a board-certified health and wellness coach. Today, we'll be talking about managing cortisol levels, why it's important. I'm sure we've all heard about the word cortisol. And I'm sure when you hear the word cortisol, you connect it with stress. It's known as a stress hormone. Well, I'll tell you this, cortisol is one of 3 stress hormones that's created and manufactured by the adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands is actually responsible for the balance of 50 plus hormones within our body. I mean, our body is such an amazing machine. It was created with such expertise and such intent that it just blows my mind. So like I said, cortisol is one of those stress hormones that's created by the adrenal glands. And there are benefits, even though it's known as a stress hormone, there are benefits to cortisol because basically everything that the body creates within us is for our benefit. So there's nothing that God put in us to disrupt or cause dysfunction. We are the ones who actually screw things up. We are perfectly made. So some of the benefits of cortisol are to help us deal with stress. Even though it's known as a stress hormone, cortisol helps us to deal with stress. How does it do that? Cortisol helps us to deal with stress by releasing sugar, which gives us energy, and also by increasing our heart rate and our blood pressure. And that is all to protect us. That's where the fight and flight mode comes in, because, you know, you've heard of stories where someone is in a situation and they would lift up a car or do supposedly seeming superhuman things because the cortisol levels were really high and the sugar was released into the bloodstream and the blood pressure was pumped up and the heart rate and blood pressure go hand in hand. And that's to protect us. That's that fight and flight mode. It also reduces inflammation, which helps us to heal, because inflammation is also known as a bad thing, but it's there for healing. It's when it's prolonged, it's when it causes an issue, just like stress. Acute is good. It's there is a reflective thing by the body to protect us. But when this becomes chronic, that's when the issue comes in. So stress also reduces inflammation in the body and also follows our circadian rhythm. Our circadian rhythm is when we wake and sleep, the times we should be awake, like for humans, like for living things, you wake or even sleep. Even plants sleep at night. So in the daytime, when there's light, you should be up, and when it's dark, you should be sleeping. That's how our bodies were created. And the cortisol levels are actually higher when we first wake up in the morning. It's called the cortisol awakening response, CAR. And with the cortisol awakening response, your energy is higher, your mood, your resilience within 30 minutes of waking up, all those things should be up to par, because that's when the cortisol levels are highest in the daytime. And then as the day goes down and it gets to night and evening, the cortisol level lowers so we can get ready for rest and digest and to go to sleep. And so it's in sync with our circadian rhythm. There's a few other hormones within our body that are also in sync with our circadian rhythm. And the next thing that cortisol level does is it maintains blood pressure and heart rate regulation. I know I just said before that it pumps up your heart rate and your blood pressure, but it also stabilizes it, because that's how we were made. The body tells the systems within when to release cortisol, when to release progesterone, when to release insulin, which are other hormones, right? And so when we're not in that fight and flight mode, the body regulates the cortisol, regulates our blood pressure and our heart rate. And that's where we're supposed to be most of the time. But for a lot of us, we are always in the fight and flight mode, which disrupts the whole system of the whole hormonal system within our body and causes dysfunction and imbalance, because we were not made to be in fight and flight for hours on end, or days on end, or weeks on end, or months on end, as some of us are. So just as it increases, like I said, it also decreases, and our body is made for that. That's how God made us, and it's just amazing how everything works. There are stressors that affect our cortisol levels. The stress hormone cortisol it has like 4 basic stressors I'm going to go through. One is physical, and I'll give a couple of examples of each of the 4. So physical stressors are sickness, poor diet, poor sleep, and that poor diet and poor sleep, that affects our cortisol awakening response, which is the car that gets us ready for the day. Because we don't eat properly, if we don't fuel our body properly, and if we don't get enough sleep for the body to rest and digest and repair, because that's what happens when we sleep, then our car will be off. So if you're constantly up when you wake up, and within a half an hour, you're constantly never have your energy back, or you're not alert, and you don't have resilience, and your mood is cranky, that's a great sign that your cortisol levels are very low. The next form of stressor is mental. It could be deadlines. You have to meet a deadline, you're stressing, and it raises your cortisol levels. Or it could be job demands of the job, which could be both physical and mental, right? And that will increase your cortisol levels. And also isolation, which is something we don't really think about, but isolation, like during COVID, and people like the elderly who's not connecting with family or connecting with friends or connecting with community, could cause cortisol levels to raise. The next stressor is emotion, grief, anger, worry, anxiety. Once we stay in those places for too long term, it causes high cortisol levels. Like I said, these things happen. Our bodies were made for the stress, but it's when it's prolonged, it's when it causes a problem. And then the cortisol, high cortisol levels, turns to dis-ease in the body. Now, the 4th stressor, as far as the body's HPA sister axis is concerned, and the HPA axis is the manufacturing system that creates cortisol in the body, this could be the worst one yet. And this is perceived. The perceived stress that we give ourselves, that we may tell ourselves, that the outcomes that we are creating in our head, the things that we are perceiving to happen that most of the time never takes place. This takes a toll on our cortisol levels and raises our cortisol levels through the roof. And the body really perceives that as the worst type of stress. And like I said, any acute stress is like a reactive stress, and it will maintain hormonal balance. But long-term chronic stress is another story. We are not built to stay in fight or flight. This creates dis-ease, and it creates a chain reaction of hormonal imbalance. Because once one hormone is off key, it sends a chain reaction, and we have 50 plus hormones in our body. And that's why a lot of times we have thinning hair, breakout in the skin, sickness, and things come on with us, and we don't know why these things are happening to us, but it's because of our cortisol levels. So let's look at ways to manage the cortisol on and off the plate, right? Which is what I call the food would be on the plate and lifestyle would be off the plate. So let's look at the poor diet. Poor diet, specifically inflammatory foods. So what are inflammatory foods? Inflammatory foods are things like sodas, ultra-processed foods, you know, the things that come in a bag or a box with a label where you have to read, and the ingredients are this big and you can't pronounce some of the words. Those are ultra-processed foods. And refined simple sugars, which all lead to type 2 diabetes. You can have these in moderation, if at all, because these put inflammation, these create excess inflammation within the body. And to combat that, there are also this same, there are inflammatory foods. There are also anti-inflammatory foods. And the anti-inflammatory foods are quality proteins, healthy fats like nuts, seeds, and avocado, low glycemic acid fruits such as apples, grapefruits, berries, cherries, pears, and low glycemic, meaning that they are digested slowly into the system to control the sugar, because the sugar creates cortisol as well. And bitter foods like kale and arugula and even ginger, but we all know ginger is inflammatory, and for some reason it's in the bitter food category. And turmeric. Turmeric is also an anti-inflammatory food. And when you're using turmeric, you use it with a dash of black pepper, because the active compound curcumin in turmeric, our bodies don't absorb easily. But when you put the black pepper in it, the compound in the black pepper helps the curcumin in the turmeric to be absorbed by our bodies. So those are anti-inflammatory foods. And when we have a lot of inflammation in our body, the inflammation leads to stress, which leads to higher cortisol production, which leads to more blood sugar being released into our veins, into the blood, which leads the pancreas to increase insulin to combat the blood sugar, which can lead to diabetes, as we know, and insulin resistance. So you see, there's a chain reaction. So we just talked about the diet, now the lifestyle. Lifestyle to counteract cortisol production. You can create boundaries, have your space, a time for yourself. But sometimes we have to have boundaries for people, places, and things just to be. And by crowding out stress, and how do you crowd out anything? You crowd out your thoughts, you crowd out bad foods, not so good foods, you crowd out stress by adding something to counteract that. So you would add more relaxing activities. You'll do more of the things that you love and enjoy. You will do deep breathing to calm yourself. You will do grounding, connect with nature, and laughter. Laughing, and even to take a pause. Back in December, Chase spoke about in Italy, dolce far niente, which is the sweetness of doing nothing. And that's the saying they have in Italy. And when he first spoke about that, I just fell in love with it. And you know, they say when you into something, or you attract it more. So I was watching a movie one time, and they ended up in Italy and had these 4 older ladies sitting down in what they call a square. And they were saying they were just dolce far niente. They were just sitting there. They sat there for like about 8 hours every day, just doing nothing. And sometimes that's what we need, because sometimes less is more. And balanced cortisol level also regulates the heart rate, your blood pressure, and your blood sugar. So those are the benefits. And when you create this lifestyle, it helps you to keep those things in balance. So find out what drains you, and find a way to counteract that, to be intentional about your cortisol levels, even though you may not know if they're high or not, but you could be able to tell. Just like if you can't sit one place for 5 or 10 minutes, I heard the doctor say, without getting up to having to do something, you're in flight and fight mode. And we both know you can't press your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. One has to go. And if your foot is down on the gas, you're speeding, going, spinning in circles. And if you're on the brake, that's when you're just relaxing and giving the cortisol levels chance to get back to normalcy. And also the way we look at stress, because sometimes we have stress and we stress over the stress, like how to deal with the stress. They say in the medical field, the stress is the first arrow, and how we deal with the stress is the second arrow, right? So even that, like we know, the body listens to everything. So if we say, why is this happening to me? Oh my gosh, da 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 da, then you raise, or the production is coming, and it's coming to help you, and it's higher and higher and higher. But if you say to yourself, why is this happening for me? It sounds more compassionate. The body receives that as something positive, and it not only produces cortisol, it also produces another hormone called DHEA, which balances cortisol. So now you don't have elevated cortisol levels. It will be in a balance, because once you look at it in a different perspective, now the body creates another hormone to create balance. And that's just a small example to show you guys how the body really does listen to everything that we say and acts accordingly, even though we're not aware of it, or we might be aware of it and not even thinking, like saying, why is this happening? I can't deal with this. I can't do this. As opposed to, okay, what's the lesson here? What am I supposed to learn? How can I use this to benefit myself? Why is this happening for me? Changes the whole chemical makeup in the body. So I would like some of you guys to share with me some of the ways that you manage stress when you feel it coming on, and what do you do when stress? Go ahead, Chase.
Yes, Ingrid, Coach Ingrid in the house. I just pop out for a second. You're doing a great job, by the way. I've been listening to you. I just couldn't talk the whole time. Interestingly enough, right as you were talking about this topic about managing stress, I'm at an appointment with my grandmother, and there's a guy inside, and he's managing people, not a lot of people, like 20 people, right? And he sees me, and he sees my grandmother, and he sees my grandmother's assistant. And it's like this little room, right? Of like, I don't know, 12 people. Have a good one. Like 12 people. And he says, there can only be 8 people in here at one time. So some of you have to leave. And I say to him, I'm with my grandmother, and this is her assistant. He goes, like I said, somebody has to leave. So you have to go in the car, or she has to go in the car. So the guy's talking to me like he's about to lose his whole composure. And I step outside and I said, sir, I know you have a job to do here. I have to be here with my grandmother. He goes, well, one of you has to go in the car. I said, sir, the car is very far from here. I think we can manage with this amount of people. And he looks at me like he's about to throw me across the room. And I say, sir, I don't want to make your job difficult. I promise you I don't. So I'm going to leave and go outside, and I'm going to have my grandmother's cell phone here. He said, thank you. But he had such a bad attitude that it was inside. I felt my chest bubbling. And I'm like, oh, you're going to let me stay with my grandmother. That's what we're going to do right now. And then I was like, hold on a second. I don't have to be part of this madness. This is not about me right now, right? And I felt everything in my chest like bubbling up, because my grandmother,
right. Mm-hmm.
I might have to wrestle you, bro. Like I don't know what's going on. So, so I left. I came back out to the car. That's why I'm able to talk to you. And I realized, wow, my mind talked to me just the right way at the right time. Do you know what I mean? Because once those levels go up, you're done. You're out of control. You know what I mean? And I was also thinking, because I love the huddle. So I'm like, oh man, I'm not on the huddle today. Wait a minute. Maybe I am on the huddle today. So I walked out and whatever. But that, in all seriousness, that moment, that could happen 10 times a day in New York City. You know what I mean?
I was going to say that, living in the city, yes. So it's like we have to manage that. Like I said, it's like reframing and looking at things different, because the cortisol levels, that fight and flight. You ready to fight, or you ready to flee?
Man,
right?
Yes,
and you can't be in parasympathetic and sympathetic at the same time. You can't press gas and press the brake at the same time. So we have to choose, and choose wisely, because it does affect our bodies within, and it causes hormonal imbalance, dysbiosis of the body and of the gut.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. You're doing a great job. I appreciate you stepping in. And I'll talk to you shortly. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any thing to share in how you manage stress when we live? We have stressors every day. And like Chase just said, especially in New York City, with the sirens and the police sirens and the ambulance sirens and the cars honking for you to get out of the way, go, whatever. But those are the everyday stressors. But the other ones that we can manage, we can manage how we think about it. Because the only thing we can really have control of is our thoughts, right? So it's all about how we think about it. And like I said, the stressor, the initiate stress is the first arrow, and how we deal with it or how we think about it is the second arrow. And what do we want to accomplish? Are we looking for optimum health? We have to, everything we do, we have to think of it as a health, because the body holds on to everything and the body listens to everything that we tell it. Whether we're saying it to ourselves, or we're saying it out loud, or we're saying it with action. So stress, how do you guys deal with your stress in your life? No one has stress? Wow. Go ahead, Giovanni.
Thank you for being here, Coach Ingrid, and exploring this conversation of cortisol and stress. And what I was thinking while you were speaking was, wow, in my state of mind, I believe I have influence over my emotional state, over my state of mind. And I was thinking, well, wow, with the certain intentional practice, daily practice, I can regulate the chemicals that are triggered by stress. So it's like, what I was thinking is like, wow, I'm like a pharmaceutical creator of chemicals that are positive for my body. And I also can create chemicals that can hurt me, like like what you're pointing to, and measure levels of cortisol. So that's what I was present. I was present to the degree in which intentional awareness allows me to create the right chemicals, if you will, for me to have a healthy life. And that's what I just wanted to comment on what I was present while you were speaking, and how important it is to know these aspects about the brain and the state of mind, and in our, or at least in my pursuit to live a long life and enjoy this thing we call life, right?
Right. Yes, very good. That's exactly what I was saying. We are the pharmacists, and the body is like the pharmaceutical with all the chemicals. And it was created for us to have a perfect balance. But of course, as humans with emotions and thoughts and stuff like that, we actually trigger how that balance is, whether it's an imbalance or whether it's a perfect balance or a close to perfect. Like I said, just looking at the stress as not what is happening to me, but why is this happening for me, creates a whole nother hormone that creates balance. And we all know stress. And as I went through the inflammation thing that could lead to the stress and the cortisol, to the insulin, the sugar and the insulin, to diabetes and insulin resistance. And you could put anything there in place of inflammation. You could put chronic grief. You can put poor sleep, and it would all end up leading to the same down the road. So thank you guys for tuning in. I really, really, truly do appreciate it.
I wanted to say,
Does somebody have a hand up? Somebody said something?
Maybe.
I thought I heard something. Okay, so thank you guys for coming in. The hour, the half hour, I should say, is upon us. We have 3 minutes left in case anyone else has anything they would like to share. Was this of any value to you, or can you share your ways of dealing with stress? Or do you think you're good at managing your stress?
hey Ingrid.
Hey, Anthony, big bro, this is my brother. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I wasn't gonna get on because where I'm at right now is very noisy.
Oh,
But real
okay,
quick,
but I'm hearing you good for now.
okay, real quick. What I do, up here we in New York, and you can run into a lot of different situations. So I do a lot of self-talk, because in self-talking, I keep myself calm. So you got to be recognized when somebody else is getting emotionally imbalanced. Because like you said, that when the amygdala gets activated, I start going into the fight, flight, or freeze. Then that person loses all control. So I can't control somebody else, so I control myself. And what I do is I meditate every morning and every night. That helps me keeps my balance.
Great. That is a great share, and that is a great way to keep your balance and to keep you calm. Because even last night, my son was asking me, like, when I was in corrections, and did somebody ever say anything disrespectful to me? I'm like, yeah, every day, all day, every day. He's like, and what did you do? I'm like, well, I'm definitely not going back and forth with anyone because I'm not sacrificing my peace for anybody. And at the time I know stress causes dis-ease. So going back and forth is like you say, you have to center yourself because I can't control you. And most of the time, if you're not feeding into the situation, it withers away anyway. But yes, anyone else? We have another minute left. Thanks for your share, big bro, Anthony. So yeah, so it's have meditation, they have like the soft yoga, deep breathing exercises, socially connecting, journaling, and taking a news or social media fast sometimes can help alleviate your stress. But believe it or not, well, we know about the news. Social media for a lot of people could be very stressful, especially if you're on there comparing yourself to the perfect lives that you see in most of the social media posts. Well, I thank you all for tuning in and for sharing your piece, Mr. Giovanni and Anthony. And here under Huddle, we always end with tenets. And one of them is to, in no particular order, love more, give of yourself, love more, move your body. This body was made to move. It wasn't made to be in a sedentary lifestyle. A lot of us, we spend a lot of time driving in the car, and then we get to work and we're sitting behind a desk, and then we go back home and we drive back home, and then we go and we sit on the sofa. Do something, doing commercials, do jumping jacks, do stretches, do squats, do high knees, something. Eat mostly plant-based because that's where the energy is, and that's where you get your chlorophyll and a lot of your vitamins from. Eat mostly plant-based. Get sufficient sleep, 6 to 8 hours. That's when the body rebuilds and repairs our bodies, the chemicals and the microbiome and everything within our body. They're the grave shift workers. They actually work while we're sleeping. So if we're not getting the sufficient and quality sleep, they can't do their job. Give, even if it's just a smile. You have clothes in your closet you're not wearing anymore, give it away. I just gave away a bag to the church. In fact, I gave away 2 bags. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Check those thoughts. The body is always listening to what you're saying to yourself. Laugh out loud, and of course, stress less. Have a blessed Wednesday. Peace be with you, and see you on the rebound.